Here's every time the events and characters from House of the Dragon were referenced in HBO's Game of Thrones, and what each one is really telling us. Season 1, Episode 4, Viserys names the dragon skulls. In Cripples, Bastards, and Broken Things, Viserys Targaryen sits in a bathtub in Vias Dothrak with Doria, Daenerys' handmaiden. She asks if he's ever seen a dragon. He says no, but he's seen their skulls.
They used to decorate the throne room in the Red Keep. When I was very young, just 3 or 4, my father used to walk me down the roads, and I'd recite their names for him.
Then he names them: Giscar and Valryan, Vermithrax, Esovius, Arcane, Meraxes, Vhagar, and Balerion the Dread, whose fire forged the 7 kingdoms into one. 3 of those names are important for our purposes: Meraxes, Vhagar, Balerion the Dread, the 3 dragons of Aegon's conquest. In 2011, this was world building for Season 1 of a new series. The dragons being named were all dead, the skulls were rubble. Viserys was selling a fantasy to a courtesan in order to impress her. But in 2026, after 2 seasons of House of the Dragon, 3 of those names carry much more weight for us. Balerion, the Black Dread, is the founding monster of the Targaryen dynasty. The dragon Aegon I rode across the Narrow Sea. The dragon Maegor the Cruel claimed after him. And the last dragon, a young prince named Viserys, ever flew before it died of old age. That same Viserys becomes King Viserys I, House of the Dragon Season 1's ruling king figure. Vhagar, Visenya Targaryen's mount, is the largest living dragon in the world by the time House of the Dragon begins. She is ridden by Laena Velaryon, then claimed by Aemon Targaryen, and her actions over Shipbreaker Bay set the entire Dance of the Dragons in motion. Meraxes, Rhaenys Targaryen's dragon, died at Hellholt with a scorpion bolt through her eye, foreshadowing a weakness that will be brutally exploited 3 centuries later. Viserys ends the scene with one more line.
You said we had them smashed to powder, I expect.
Wrong, as it turns out. Season 1, Episode 5, Arya and the Dragon Skulls. 1 episode later, in The Wolf and the Lion, Arya is chasing a cat through the Red Keep as part of her sword training. The cat darts down a low staircase, through a narrow window, and into a cellar. Arya follows. She stumbles upon the answer to the question Viserys got wrong. Robert Baratheon hadn't smashed the dragon skulls to powder. He'd had them removed from the throne room and placed in storage, a basement near the dungeons of the Red Keep. For viewers new to George R.R. Martin's world in 2011, this was just a dark room with some big skulls in it, and a place for Arya to overhear a Varys conversation that would move the plot forward a little. But what we're actually seeing is Arya hiding among the skulls of the old Targaryen dragons, 19 relics that once hung in the throne room above. Among them would have been Balerion, Meraxes, and Vhagar. After House of the Dragon, this room feels much more meaningful, like a graveyard for the dynasty we're watching destroy itself. We will come back to this cellar. Season 2, Episode 1, The Painted Table. In the Season 2 premiere, Stannis is introduced sitting with his council at a long, carved wooden map of Westeros at Dragonstone. The map has a name, The Painted Table. That same table features heavily in House of the Dragon, where Rhaenyra Targaryen and her Blacks use it to plan their half of the Dance of the Dragons, the civil war that very nearly ended the dynasty for good. The table was commissioned by Aegon Targaryen, back when he was still just the Lord of Dragonstone, to plan his invasion of the 7 kingdoms. Some of the most important Targaryen war councils in Westerosi history happened around that table before it ended up in Stannis' possession. Aegon planned the conquest on it, Rhaenyra plans the dance on it, Stannis plans his rebellion on it, and Daenerys, 5 seasons later, will plan her attempted conquest on it too. In House of the Dragon, you see it lit from beneath, a glowing orange map the Targaryens move armies and dragons across. But in Game of Thrones, the series, the lighting function had not yet been added. Season 2, Episode 7, Tywin tells Arya how Aegon changed the rules. In A Man Without Honor, Tywin Lannister is at Harrenhal, and a disguised Arya is his cupbearer. He muses aloud about the castle, the largest fortress ever built in Westeros, abandoned and cursed. He describes how it was built to withstand an attack from the land.
1 million men could have marched on these walls, and 1 million men would have been repelled. But in a attack from the air with dragon fire. Aegon Targaryen changed the rules.
This is the densest conquest reference in all of Game of Thrones. But it's not dense enough for Arya, who corrects Tywin saying,
It wasn't just Aegon riding his dragon.
She elaborates.
It was Rhaenys and Visenya too. Rhaenys rode Meraxus. Visenya rode Vhagar.
I'm sure I knew that when I was a boy.
Then she delivers the line that pays off 13 years later.
Visenya Targaryen was a great warrior. She had a Valyrian steel sword she called Dark Sister.
Arya names the Valyrian steel longsword, forged for the queen who rode Vhagar. It's the same sword wielded by Daemon throughout House of the Dragon, the blade he carries at the Stepstones and at Harrenhal during his Riverlands campaign. We've seen the sword Arya is naming in the hand of a man 170 years dead, himself a former resident of Harrenhal, and we see that Tywin, the most powerful man in Westeros, has nothing to teach this child about Westerosi history. Season 2, Episode 9, Maegor's Holdfast. During the Battle of the Blackwater, Cersei Lannister gathers Sansa Stark and the noble ladies of the court into a small stone-walled refuge inside the Red Keep. The name of the room is spoken aloud. Maegor's Holdfast is the castle within a castle at the heart of the Red Keep, a stout stone tower surrounded by a dry moat of iron spikes, designed to be the last refuge if the capital ever fell. It was built by, and named after, Maegor the Cruel. Maegor was the son of Aegon the Conqueror and Visenya. He claimed Balerion the Black Dread after his father died, burned the Faith Militant with dragon fire, took 6 wives, and executed 3 Grand Maesters, before being found dead on the Iron Throne with his wrists slashed open. When he finished building the Holdfast, he supposedly threw a feast for every stonemason and architect who'd worked on it. Then he had them all murdered, so no one but the Targaryens would know of its existence and of the castle's hidden secrets. Maegor the Cruel indeed. That's the room Cersei is hiding in. In House of the Dragon's very first episode, Otto Hightower warns Viserys against naming Daemon Targaryen as heir by invoking a single name.
Daemon would be a second Maegor, or worse.
A second Maegor, or worse. During the dance, this monstrous figure still loomed large, but by the time of Game of Thrones, he's just a name found in history books and on old buildings. Season 3, Episode 4, Joffrey spoils the ending of House of the Dragon. In And Now His Watch is Ended, King Joffrey is giving Marjorie Tyrell a tour of the Great Sept of Baelor. He stops at what looks like a vent leading down into the basement and decides to impress Marjorie with his knowledge of Targaryen family history.
Rhaenyra Targaryen was murdered by her brother, or rather, his dragon. It ate her while her son watched.
He continues,
What's left of her is buried in the crypts right down there.
In 2013, this was a curious anecdote from a sadistic teenager. Few realized that Joffrey was dropping a massive spoiler that would be important a decade later. So, 6 years before House of the Dragon even entered development, Game of Thrones dropped a major spoiler about the ending of its entire prequel series. The brother is Aegon II, Rhaenyra's half-brother, whose usurping of the throne starts the Dance of the Dragons. The dragon is Sunfire. The golden dragon Aegon rides into battle at Rook's Rest. The son who has to watch is Aegon the Younger, Rhaenyra's eldest surviving boy by Daemon, who will be crowned Aegon III after the war ends. The trauma is so great that he is later known as Aegon the Unlucky and Aegon the Broken. He never recovers. Which reference so far surprises you the most? Let us know in the comments. Season 3, Episode 7, Tywin and the Last Dragon. A few episodes later, in The Bear and the Maiden Fair, Joffrey corners Tywin at the small council and demands to know what they're doing about the Targaryen girl in the east and her dragons. Tywin, unbothered, gives him a history lesson.
When I was Hand of the King under your father's predecessor, the skulls of all the Targaryen dragons were kept in this room. The skull of the last of them was right here. It was the size of an apple.
When Joffrey points out that the biggest was the size of a carriage, Tywin isn't concerned.
Yes, and the creature to whom it belonged died 300 years ago.
The last dragon hatched a few decades after the Dance of the Dragons. It died young, sickly, and stunted, barely the size of a cat. Why? Because of the dance. The Civil War wiped out most of the Targaryen dragons, and the few that remained could not save the species from collapse. Again, it's the story of the Targaryen dynasty told through its dragons, and the message is unmistakable. The realm need not fear the Targaryen girl in the east and her sickly, stunted dragons. Not Tywin's finest assessment. Season 5, Episode 9, the book, the episode, the dance. This is the big one. In Season 5, an entire episode of Game of Thrones is named after the Targaryen Civil War. The Dance of Dragons. Shireen Baratheon is sitting in her tent during Stannis' failed march on Winterfell, reading a thick leather-bound book. The Dance of Dragons, a true telling, by Grand Maester Muncoon.
What's this one now?
The Dance of Dragons, a true telling by Grand Maester Munkin.
Muncoon was the Grand Maester who served on the Regency Council of Aegon III after the dance, and he wrote the in-universe history of the war that House of the Dragon is adapting. That's right, every episode of House of the Dragon draws upon to some degree the book Shireen is reading.
Well, that sounds like a proper story.
So Byron Swan wanted to kill the dragon Vhagar. He polished his shield for a week so that it was like a mirror. Then he crouched behind it and crept forward, hoping the dragon would only see its own reflection.
Davos visits her first, and she tells him about it.
But the dragon saw a dumb man holding a mirrored shield.
And burnt him to a crisp.
Then Stannis comes in.
What are you reading?
The Dance of Dragons.
This is how she explains the war to her father. She explains that the realm was torn in two, that brothers fought brothers, and dragons fought dragons. By the time it was over, the Targaryens were never truly the same.
It's the story of the fight between Rhaenyra Targaryen and her half-brother dragon for control of the Seven Kingdoms. Both of them thought they belonged on the Iron Throne.
Stannis asks her who she would have chosen, Rhaenyra or Aegon.
I wouldn't have chosen either. Saw that choosing sides that made everything so horrible.
Stannis tells her that sometimes the world forces a man to choose. He kisses her on the forehead and leaves. In the next scene, he and Melisandre tie Shireen to a stake and burn her alive. The Dance of the Dragons begins in earnest with a kinslaying. It ends with Rhaenyra fed to her brother's dragon while her son watches. In the episode named after the war in House of the Dragon, we see a father burning his own daughter in a desperate bid to rescue a lost cause. The similarities are very clear and very intentional. Season 7, Episode 1. Daenerys at the Painted Table. 5 seasons after Stannis first stood over it, the Painted Table makes another appearance. In Dragonstone, Daenerys Targaryen arrives at her family's seat for the first time since she was smuggled away as an infant. She walks the empty halls, past the abandoned banners of House Baratheon, past the Dragonhead gates, into the throne room, and then into the chamber of the Painted Table. She trails her fingertips along the carved coastline. Tyrion stands beside her. After decades in exile, Westeros is finally within touching distance for her. As with Rhaenyra, the map is far more than just a map. It's destiny, the end point of the prophecy passed down from Aegon, and like Rhaenyra and so many of her ancestors, it ends up consuming her. It isn't just the table, of course. The entire walk through Dragonstone now feels like Daenerys walking through the ruins of House of the Dragon, the fortress where Rhaenyra held court, where Daemon brooded, where the Blacks planned their war, and where generations of Targaryens mistook inheritance for destiny. Season 7, Episode 2, Cersei cracks Balerian's skull. 1 episode later, we're back in the Red Keep. Qyburn leads Cersei into the same cellar Arya hid in 6 seasons ago. The dragon skulls are still there. He stops her at the biggest one.
Balerion the Dread, the beast that Aegon rode across the sea. Flames forged the Iron Throne and brought the Seven Kingdoms to heel.
Then he reveals what he's brought her to see. A scorpion. A giant crossbow built into a wheeled frame, designed for a single purpose. He invites her to pull the lever, and the bolt punches through Balerian's skull like it's wet paper.
Powerful, but not invincible.
The history referenced in this scene actually predates House of the Dragon, but it looms large over the Dance of the Dragons. Balerion is the legendary dragon Aegon rode in the Conquest, later ridden by Maegor the Cruel, and a young Viserys in House of the Dragon's prologue era. 3 centuries before Qyburn unveils this weapon, Meraxes, ridden by Aegon's sister Rhaenys, was killed by a scorpion bolt. Rhaenys flew her dragon over Hellholt during the First Dornish War. A Dornish defender fired a scorpion bolt. It struck Meraxes through the eye, and she fell from the sky, crushing Rhaenys beneath her. 3 centuries later, Cersei is hoping that history will repeat, and as we of course know, it does. Season 7, Episode 3, The King Who Knelt. In The Queen's Justice, Daenerys receives Jon Snow at Dragonstone. Davos introduces him as King in the North. Daenerys is unimpressed.
I never did receive a formal education, but I could have sworn I read the last king in the North was Torrhen Stark, who bent the knee to my ancestor Aegon Targaryen.
Torrhen Stark is the man known to history as the King Who Knelt. After the Field of Fire and the burning of Harrenhal, he marched his army south to oppose Aegon. But after seeing what dragons did to other armies, he surrendered on the banks of the Trident. The North had no king for 300 years, until Robb Stark. Torrhen had many descendants, and one of them is Cregan Stark. Cregan plays a decisive role in the late stages of the Dance of the Dragons, following the Winter Wolves south to enforce the peace after Aegon's death, bringing the murderers to justice, and serving as Hand of the King for a single day. Of course, Daenerys isn't concerned with any of this. She's only interested in posturing, oblivious to the fact she's speaking to Aegon's namesake and the rightful heir to the Iron Throne, with a lineage that runs through Torrhen, Aegon, and Cregan. Season 7, Episode 5, Jaime and Tyrion beneath Balerion. 2 episodes after Qyburn punches a scorpion bolt through Balerion's skull, we return to the same cellar. Tyrion meets Jaime in secret beneath the Red Keep, and behind them, almost swallowed by shadow, is the skull of the Black Dread. No one says his name this time. They don't need to. The sons of Tywin Lannister are negotiating the future of the realm under the remains of the dragon that made that realm in the first place. Season 7, Episode 7, The Dragon Pit. The Season 7 finale takes place in the ruins of the Dragon Pit. It is the largest gathering of major characters in the show's history. Cersei, Jaime, Euron, Daenerys, Jon, Tyrion, Brienne, the Hound, the Mountain, Davos, Theon, Varys, all in one collapsed amphitheater at the top of Rhaenys' Hill. As they approach, Missandei asks why the Targaryens built such a place. Jorah explains that dragons tend to take what they want.
Dragons don't understand the difference between what is theirs and what isn't. Land, livestock, children.
In other words, letting them have the run of King's Landing would have been a disaster. Tyrion adds the kicker.
I imagine it was a sad joke at the end. An entire arena. Sickly creatures smaller than dogs.
Neither mention that they are walking through the ruins of the Targaryen dynasty itself. During the dance with the Valyrian blockade starving King's Landing, a one-handed prophet called the Shepherd led a mob up Rhaenys' hill. They broke down the doors of the dragon pit with axes and rams. 4 chained dragons, Shrykos, Morgul, Tyraxes, and Dreamfire, fought for their lives and lost. A 5th, Syrax, joined the battle and died too. Thousands of small folk burned. Within a generation, dragons were extinct. We'll be coming back to the dragon pit shortly, but first we have a bonus reference. The Catspaw Dagger. This is the object hiding in plain sight from almost the beginning, the Valyrian steel dagger used in the attempt on Bran Stark's life. In Game of Thrones, it passes from the assassin to Catelyn, from Littlefinger to Bran, and eventually from Bran to Arya. And with that blade, Arya kills the Night King. But House of the Dragon transforms the dagger into something older and stranger. It becomes the blade carried by Targaryen kings, linked to Aegon's dream of the Song of Ice and Fire, and passed from Viserys to Rhaenyra as part of the secret burden of the throne. This all means that, retroactively, the weapon that ends the Long Night is also one of the last surviving symbols of the prophecy that helped shape the Targaryen dynasty. Or perhaps it's just some fan service that doesn't quite add up. Season 8, Episode 6, Drogon melts the throne Balerion forged. In the Iron Throne, Daenerys lies at the foot of the throne she crossed an ocean to claim, dead at the hand of Jon Snow. Drogon enters the throne room and sees his mother. He nudges her lifeless body, then he turns to look at the chair. He opens his mouth. The Iron Throne was forged from 1,000 surrendered swords, melted together by the breath of a single dragon. Viserys told Doria that in Season 1, in a bathtub in Vice Dothrak. Qyburn repeated it to Cersei in a cellar in Season 7. That dragon was Balerion the Dread. Drogon is the largest dragon the world has seen in generations, the closest thing this age has to Balerion. One forged the Targaryen seat, and the other now destroys it. 300 years of Targaryen rule, beginning and ending the same way, in the same spot in King's Landing. Season 8, Episode 6, A New King in the Ruins of the Dragons. We're back in the Dragon Pit for our final entry. The surviving lords of Westeros gather their series finale to choose a new king. The new political order is born in the ruins of the old Targaryen war machine, the place where dragons were once chained, where Aegon the usurper was crowned, and where the dance helped destroy the creatures that had made the Targaryens gods among men. The monarchy after Daenerys is decided not in the Red Keep, not before the Iron Throne, but in the graveyard of the dragons. So those are the Game of Thrones references that point back to House of the Dragon. When you see them all together, you realize that through every dragon skull, every ruin, every casually named ancestor, the dance was always there. If you enjoyed this and want to see more, hit subscribe, ring the bell, and we'll see you in the next one.